Hello, and welcome back to the Accelerated Financial Advisor podcast, where we interview real world advisors who are seeking ways to raise their AUM and navigate a quickly changing world of marketing and client acquisition. This podcast is brought to you by Phantom Growth. Phantom Growth partners with financial advisors to help them go from relying on referrals and word of mouth to having a predictable pipeline of qualified buyers without requiring a large sales team or massive ad spend. This podcast gives us the opportunity to learn from advisors in the space and better understand the day-to-day problems they face so we can better create solutions to increase predictable client pipelines. If you would like to learn more, you can visit us at phantomgrowth.com. Today we have a really exciting guest, Christian Amsberry, who is the founder of Concierge Wealth, a financial planning firm built around deeply personal client relationships. After more than 20 years in the industry, ranging from wirehouses to RIAs, he now focuses on helping widows specifically to make confident decisions with their wealth. He launched Concierge Wealth with a focus on simplicity, personalization, and trust. With over 2 decades of financial planning experience across multiple platforms, he is also a speaker and educator on estate planning, equity comp, and planning after loss. He serves on the board of Brian D. Stevens Foundation and is also a volunteer with Next Village and a nonprofit, Knights of Malta, whose mission is to help the sick and the poor. Without further ado, let's dive right into our conversation.
And I went to my web designer and I just said, hey, can you just make this kind of coastal California, like warm, inviting, and make it a place where people, when they land on it, it doesn't cause an anxiety. They're coming to financial planners with some type of issue. It's like going to the doctor. It's not like you're excited to go see the doctor. It's typically something's on your mind. And I wanted to create a website where, again, no friction, no judgment. Here's my phone number. Here's my Calendly link. Here's my email. Whatever you're comfortable with, like reach out and let's talk about it.
I love that. I love that. And it sounds like you interplay a lot of your personal story with your client relationships. Is that something like with your father's diagnosis? How has that played into working with widows?
Oh, it's authenticity, right? I'm not saying I understand totally what's going on in your world, but I want to let you know that like there's stuff that's happened to me and I got scared too. And I know what that feeling's like of just not sure like what the next steps are to take. And I even joke with them, like, I don't even manage my own investments. Like, because what I realize is I go to other people for financial planning help because I have my own blind spots. And what I've realized is by doing that, I'm so much happier because even with this recent market correction we had, I wasn't the one pressing the buttons or if needing to reallocate. That wasn't like, I didn't have to be concerned about that. I was focused on being there for my clients.
Yeah, very cool. This is like such a good conversation. Everything you're giving is super insightful. So let's kind of go back to talking about your niche. So maybe go through and give me like how you kind of came into this and then your realization that it was important to niche down.
Constant about like this whole niche. And frankly, it's only been since last year that I've really dialed in the niche that I have. And it honestly started because of this process when I was trying to find my next landing spot at Titleist when they introduced me to my business coach, Jay Coulter. And basically what he said was, Christian, I want you to go through like all the clients you've worked with. I want you to identify who you like working with. So it was kind of this like reframe of instead of figuring out like what the most profitable, et cetera, it was about who do you like working with? And then let's take it a step further. What do you provide for them? What feedback have you gotten about your services so that we can start to figure out how we should work backwards, so to speak, when we're designing your marketing? And that's where,
Interesting. That's a great
yeah,
exercise.
yeah. And for me, it was realizing my wife works in tech. And I grew up with 2 sisters. So what I realized was I was used to that. And I realized with my wife, she would get these stock options and all these benefits when you work at tech companies. And she doesn't have an interest or desire or knowledge to understand it or execute on it. And by helping her, I realized, gosh, this is overwhelming stuff. Like when you get a job offer at a tech company, this is what happens is they give you this term sheet, offer sheet, usually your stock options at Carta, and they tell you things like, hey, for advice on your equity component or your stock component, please go consult your tax or investment advisor. And I think what happens when people do that, A, it's overwhelming, and B, you don't want to feel dumb. Like you don't want to feel like, oh, should I know this stuff? And so that
Yeah.
was kind of how I figured out like that particular niche that I felt like I could educate and empower women in tech to make decisions that aligned and that they were confident with and they felt that made sense for them. So that was kind of the tech focus that I have. And on the
Yeah.
widow focus, what was happening is I realized I just over the years of, thinking I actually already had a lot of widows that I worked with. And while I was going through this branding process, my dad called me last January of 2024, so the beginning of the year, and he announced that he had Parkinson's. And that was a diagnosis where I've always viewed my dad as immortal. Like he's a super healthy guy and never had any real problems. And all of a sudden, you get this terminal diagnosis. And then I started thinking about my mom, who had never really been too involved with the finances. And I was like, gosh, we need to really, I want to help bring her up to speed on what's going on.
Yeah.
And because she's my mom, I had this whole different view of it as I finally saw it from her perspective of what it feels like to have a financial spouse and then realize that that person is not going to be there any longer or is not there, period, anymore.
So almost seeing the pain that someone else is going through really helped you see like who you wanted to help.
Not just the pain, but the confusion, the overwhelming nature of everything all at once, and not having somebody there to kind of reassure or guide you. Like the story brand's all about, hey, who's the hero in the story? It's really your client, right? That's the person you need to help. Like what problems or issues are they going to face? And then how can you help guide them? What can the end result be? Not statements, not like, 50-page investment reports, but can you get this down to one page where they can understand clearly what they own, why they own, and more importantly, that money's just this resource for them to help accomplish the specific goals or objectives they have in their life.
For sure. What would you say to advisors who are looking through their books and seeing who they've worked with in the past? Maybe they're in a place where they're trying to niche down. How would you say they could best go about finding these end outcomes for these individual clients? What types of conversations should they have so they can best market to them?
One of the questions I like to ask my clients is when they talk about me in our relationship that I have as like their financial planner, like how do they describe what we do? And then I try to follow that up with, okay, what do you find the most valuable of the things that we're doing together? And I like to always ask a question, the blind spots of, are there specific things that I might be able to help you with, or are there things that are keeping you up at night that, we may be able to assist?
Cool. And you've found over time that you enjoy working with these widows the most over others. Why so? Is there another clientele that you maybe have worked with that you felt like maybe your needs were your skills weren't as tailored towards, or why do you feel like widows and women in tech are your go-to?
Well, the characteristic, I don't mean to pick on male software engineers, especially ones that aren't. But what I found, Austin, was they were coming to me in meetings with their own spreadsheets they built out, the own research that they've done. And it wasn't a collaborative relationship. It was almost an adversarial where it's like, well, Christian, I read that you can do X and I'm going to do that even though you're recommending against that. So for me, it was like, okay, why don't I find a particular niche that I feel like I can deliver a massive value for? I can give them that peace of mind because that's my thing is I think when anybody comes to us, what they're really asking for is, hey, am I going to be okay? Am I doing the right things? And I just found with that particular niche, like the male software engineers, I'm just not a good fit for them. And it's
Yeah.
really empowering, Austin. It was scary. I will tell people this, sort of advisors out there, if you're wondering about whether to niche or not, it's scary because change is messy. And it required me to kind of rewrite my processes. It required me to just almost undo a lot of things or the ways I've been doing them in the past.
Yeah, you talk a lot about mindset, and I know you've mentioned having a business consultant or mentor. Is that right? What have they kind of helped you do to frame that?
I think just getting out of my own way. And I think one of the big things I say now is who, not how. meaning who is the right person for this particular thing that I'm working on. And I tell this all the time to clients. The best clients I have, they're ready and willing to make changes, and they are almost like they become decisive delegators, where it's like, here's a great example. Had a widow client, husband had these two collector cars in the garage for years, and they had just sat there. Nobody had used them. Husband passes away. She's mentioning it kind of like a passing conversation. She's like, "Oh yeah, Christian, by the way, like, yeah, I don't know what to do with these cars." And so I call up a friend who's an auto broker, and he's out there the next day assessing them and then basically finding buyers for them. So we turned this nagging problem in her life into a couple $100,000 in her pocket. So again, by solving that problem. And then other clients, whether they need professional organizers, I have people I refer out to. Had a client that recently went on a dream trip to Japan after she's in transition between jobs, and I found her a travel agent for that. And by the way, the same client, what she needed was, when she was exiting her company, because she was in the executive staff, she needed to talk to an employment lawyer to understand what she could negotiate on her way out. So those are just kind of things where I tell clients, I just need to know what's going on in your life, and we'll find, if it's not me, I'll go find the right person to help you with that specific problem.
Super cool. Is that way more fulfilling to you than having worked as in the wirehouse kind of area? Not the
Oh my
wirehouse. I
gosh.
framed that poorly.
No, no, it's fair. So what I used to think this job was picking the right investments, talking about the global macro economy. And what I've realized is my kind of core belief is, especially with investing, low cost, globally diversified, tax efficient is 90%, I would say, of the way to solve that problem. But what I realized is, by freeing myself up to focus on the relationship part, I can really help, especially my widow client, reduce complexity, like increase their return on life. And then all of a sudden they know this, they have this sounding board and this person that they can talk to. And they're not, like, for instance, a burden to their kids. They're not having to just rely on people where they don't want to, inconvenience those people around them. Because I tell them, I said, come to me when something's keeping you up at night. When you have an issue, call me, email me, schedule a meeting, because I don't have a couple hundred households. And that's where I would talk about, like, my concierge practice. I tell people, at most, I want 50 clients.
Hmm.
Because what I realized is, by only having a certain number of clients, I'm available as they need me.
Yeah. You get to be more personal and one-on-one. Well, you're very personable, and I think I would trust you with my life, and I'm sure obviously your clients feel the same way about you. How have you been able to kind of get out in front of them and show that you're trustworthy? Have you done that through your website? Have you been able to do that through any other sort of avenue?
So that's good timing on that question, Austin. This is all new to me. So if you're showing this to advisors, I'm learning as I go. I feel like a fraud sometimes, especially when it comes to my marketing, because again, all of this world is new to me basically within the last year. So
Yeah.
I'm trying stuff.
And you're not alone.
Yeah. And so what I would say is, like, my motto this year is, like, you can just do things. And I really try to incorporate that into my own practice, where I'll try out, like, a different landing page on my website. I'll try out a different technology, like, 'cause I'm using a lot more like tech vendors and whatnot, to see what's resonating with clients and what isn't. And I guess I go back to this thing of, yeah, it's the same thing for clients. What I'm realizing is, so much of what we do as financial planners, it's all new to them. And we talk in jargon. We've been doing this stuff sometimes for decades, and we think what's common knowledge in our world, somebody sitting across this other side of the table, they probably don't have a clue as to what we're talking about.
Yeah. The best advice I've ever gotten in marketing is talk to everyone like they're in fifth grade, because most of the population in general reads at a fifth grade level. But it's hard when you're in the middle of it because you understand the jargon and you tend to speak with other people in your own industry who understand it. And so when we talk to our clients, it's very easy to do the same. So it's a mind shift, definitely, to like dumb it down and kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier, instead of talking about the how, getting into the where they want to go. And then we know how, and we can kind of give them a brief overview, but more importantly, show them that we can get them to this desired outcome in this state that they want to be in.
Totally. And that's where it's like with my web designer, I keep him on basically a retainer because what I realized is it's this ever evolving thing as I'm tweaking things. And it's an ongoing relationship with the different vendors that I use for my marketing. And that's like it's a funny example. So last week with the market tanking, I was talking to one of my tech clients and she had mentioned, oh, this week is the Sephora, I think it's semi-annual 20% off sale. And if you know anything about my demographic, like that's a big deal. You get 20% off one of your favorite stores. And
Yeah.
I said, yeah, it's kind of like that with the stock market right now. We have this discount, right? We have this sale. And if we were doing the same thing, if somebody told you this store was on sale at 20% off, would you buy more? And she said, yes. I said, okay, that's exactly the argument I'm making now is that we have this cash sitting on the sidelines. Why not use it while things are on sale?
Yeah, completely agree. Being in the with niching down, I'm curious kind of what thoughts went through your mind initially. Did you have kind of a scarcity mindset from the get-go? Were you like, okay, what if I'm just saying I work with one person or just women, what about all those other men out there? Did that kind of cross your mind?
More importantly, what I thought was I was going to alienate the current clients I do have. Because I
Yeah,
was like,
big
okay,
concern.
what happened? Yeah. What happens if they see my website and they're not listed on there? Yeah. My immediate concern was, am I going to alienate like who I'm currently working with? And then the second part of it was, and then going forward, if I'm not working with everyone, am I going to lose a lot of opportunities?
And have you seen it be alienating or what have you seen?
Absolutely not. It's funny. Now I mentioned that I work largely with widows. I swear, everyone, when I mention that phrase, it's either their parents have been affected, meaning they're worried about their parents and what's going to happen to them, or somebody firsthand has said, oh my gosh, I had, a friend where this happened and she felt completely, or he felt completely overwhelmed. Because if you talk to widows, that first year especially, they'll say it feels like a fog, meaning everything's
Yeah.
changing. They're not sure what direction to go in, and they don't really have a guide a lot of times to help them along the way.
Yeah, that's got to be really rewarding to work with them and solve really big pain points, emotional pain points as well.
Yeah, and explain finances in a way where, again, simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. And I would say, even with your marketing, if they can't understand what you do and who you do it for within 30 seconds landing on a website, like I know how I feel when I go to somebody's website and I don't understand what they do.
Do you feel like it's made marketing easier for you, creating content?
Absolutely. And now that I have kind of this niche, I go into like use AI and I'm like, I want to appeal to this specific clientele. Can you tell me what they would think if they saw whatever I'm working on?
Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's great because we do think it's funny when you like enter this space of niching down where you kind of look back at your old self and you go, why did I do that? Like, why was I trying to speak to the whole world? Because then you think about, well, who do I hire? When I have a leak in my house, who do I go to hire? You tend to trust the people who say they work with a specific person to solve a specific problem. And so it's cool to see you in that mindset of that realization. I'm curious, have
And
you
I would
heard
do the
about
same thing for website designers. So I would give a plug to website designers, but I don't want to
yeah,
talk to somebody that does website designers for HVAC and pool cleaners. Like I want to talk to the guy
true.
or like one who deals specifically with the business that I'm trying to create.
Yeah, especially one that's very compliance heavy and audited. Well, this has been an incredible conversation, and I have learned so much just hearing about your experience. And I love that you've been able to touch on how this mindset has shifted for you and helped you to market better and work with people that you want to work with, which I also think is great. Is there any last comments that you would share or anything that you would say on this to advisors who are looking to do the same?
When people ask me that question now, it's one of these things I wish I had done this a long time ago. I have regrets. I don't dwell on regrets, but I will say, Austin, I wish I had really left like the broker dealer space sooner. I wish I had started working on this story brand stuff sooner. And I wish that I was quicker to seek outside help instead of trying to do it myself when it comes to the marketing.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for mentors. I would not be anywhere close to where I'm at without other people who've been in that space. So you sound like you're an incredible mentor to your clients and those that you work with, and I can totally feel that. And anyone who would be able to work with you would be super fortunate. Where could they go to find you?
So I have my website. That's usually the easiest way. It's www.concierge, just like the word concierge, hotel concierge, dash wealth.com. And again, I try to make it easier. And I think there's a Calendly link, there's a phone number, there's an email address, and feel free to reach out to me however you're comfortable.
Love that. And I love that you have a Calendly link instead of just leading people to a form where they get lost. So another great thing that you're doing here. Well, thank you again, Christian, for your time. You have given some great feedback and advice that will be helpful to all of our listeners. So thanks again.
Thanks, Austin, for having me. It was great.
Thank you.